What if the nicest person in the room is actually the most disconnected? What if every time you smiled when you wanted to scream, every time you said I'm fine when you were falling apart, every time you said yes when your whole soul was screaming no, what if all of that wasn't kindness at all? What if it was slow, silent self-betrayal? What if the very thing you thought was making people love you was actually keeping them from ever truly knowing you? What if your niceness has been building a wall around your real self, brick by brick, smile by smile, yes by yes? And what if today, right now, in the next few minutes, you discover that the most radical, revolutionary, earth-shaking thing you can do is simply to stop performing and start being real? Stay with me, because what I am about to share will change the way you see every relationship in your life, including the one you have with yourself. What if the nicest person in the room is actually the most disconnected? What if every time you smiled when you wanted to scream, every time you said I'm fine when you were falling apart, every time you said yes when your whole soul was screaming no, what if all of that wasn't kindness at all? What if it was slow, silent self-betrayal? What if the very thing you thought was making people love you was actually keeping them from ever truly knowing you? What if your niceness has been building a wall around your real self, brick by brick, smile by smile, yes by yes? And what if today, right now, in the next few minutes, you discover that the most radical, revolutionary, earth-shaking thing you can do is simply to stop performing and start being real? Stay with me, because what I am about to share will change the way you see every relationship in your life, including the one you have with yourself. I have spent years studying human connection. I have sat with thousands of people, listened to their stories, held space for their pain. And I can tell you with absolute certainty, the thing that breaks people most quietly, most invisibly, most completely is not cruelty. It is not betrayal from an enemy. It is the slow daily act of betraying yourself in the name of being liked. We live in a world that rewards niceness. We give gold stars to the people who never complain. We celebrate the ones who always show up, always help, always smile, always accommodate. We call them good people. We say, oh, she is so sweet, he is so generous, they never say no. And we treat that as the highest compliment. But I want to ask you something deeply uncomfortable today. What if that is not a compliment at all? What if that is a diagnosis? Because here is what the research tells us. Here is what the data, the thousands of interviews, the years of study, here is what it screams at us. People who never say no are not the most loving people in the room. They are the most afraid. They are not giving from abundance. They are giving from terror, terror of disapproval, terror of conflict, terror of being seen as selfish, difficult, ungrateful, or unkind. They are not being generous. They are being hostage. And the captor is not another person. The captor is their own desperate, aching, unexamined need for approval. Think about the last time you said yes when you meant no. Think about it carefully. Where were you? Who were you with? What did it feel like in your body, in your chest, in your stomach, when the word yes came out of your mouth and every cell in your body was saying, please, no, not this, not again? That moment, that exact moment was not kindness. That was fear wearing kindness as clothing. And the cost of that moment was real. The cost was a small piece of your dignity, a small piece of your truth, a small piece of you. And we think, well, it's just one small piece. It doesn't matter. But here is the terrifying truth about small pieces. They add up. Every yes that should have been a no, every silence that should have been a sentence, every smile that should have been a conversation, every agreement that should have been a boundary. They stack, they accumulate, they calcify inside you. And one day, one ordinary, unremarkable Tuesday, you look in the mirror and you do not recognize the person looking back at you, because that person has been so busy being what everyone else needed them to be that they have completely forgotten or perhaps never even discovered who they actually are. This is the hidden cost. This is what nobody talks about at dinner parties or posts on social media or celebrates in speeches. The hidden cost of being too nice is the loss of yourself, quietly, gradually, completely. Now I want to talk about something that makes people deeply uncomfortable, and that is the word boundaries. The moment I say that word in a room, I watch people physically recoil. Because we have been taught, we have been conditioned to believe that boundaries are selfish, that boundaries are cold, that boundaries mean you do not love someone enough to give them what they want, that good people, kind people do not have boundaries. They give and give and give until there is nothing left, and then they apologize for being empty. But let me tell you what I have learned. Let me tell you what changed everything for me and for the thousands of people whose stories live in my research. The most generous people I've ever encountered, the people who give with genuine warmth, with real joy, with sustainable love, are the people with the clearest boundaries, because they know what they can give without losing themselves. They know where their yes ends and their no begins. And because of that clarity, every yes they give is real. It is full. It is freely chosen. It is not performed. It is not extracted from them through guilt or obligation or fear. It is given. And that is the difference between love and people-pleasing. Love is free. People-pleasing is indentured servitude with a smile painted on top. Here is something I need you to hear, really hear in your bones. You cannot love someone well from a place of resentment. It is impossible. You can perform love from a place of resentment. You can go through the motions. You can show up, do the things, say the words, but you cannot feel it. And the people around you, the ones you love most, they can feel the difference. They can sense it. They may not be able to name it, but they feel it. They feel the performance. They feel the distance. They feel the glass wall between your real self and the version of you that shows up for them. And that distance, that invisible, unspoken distance, is what erodes connection over time. Not conflict, not honesty, not boundaries. The performance of niceness erodes connection. Now I want to address the deepest, most painful layer of all of this, the belief that lives underneath all the people-pleasing, underneath all the chronic niceness, underneath all the boundary violations and the swallowed truths and the manufactured smiles. And that belief is this: I am not enough, not as I am, not with my needs and my opinions and my imperfections and my limits. So I will make myself useful. I will make myself agreeable. I will make myself indispensable. And maybe if I am helpful enough and pleasant enough and accommodating enough, maybe then I will finally deserve to be loved. This belief is a lie. And it is a lie that costs you everything. Worthiness, real, sustainable, soul-deep worthiness, is not earned through performance. You do not earn the right to be loved by being infinitely accommodating. You do not earn belonging by never disappointing anyone. Worthiness cannot be purchased with your silence or your compliance or your endless availability. It is not a reward for good behavior. It is not something you graduate into after years of selfless service. Worthiness is your starting point. It is what you were born with. It is what has always been true about you, even when life convinced you otherwise, even when people treated you as though your value was conditional, even when you internalized those messages and started treating your own value as conditional. The exact, terrifying, liberating moment when you decide that you are enough right now as you are, with your needs and your limits and your imperfections, that is the moment everything changes. That is the moment you stop performing and start connecting. That is the moment you stop managing people's perceptions and start having real relationships. That is the moment you stop being nice and start being honest. And honest is so much braver and so much more beautiful and so much more connective than nice will ever be. Now, please hear me clearly. I am not standing here telling you to be unkind. I am not telling you that compassion is overrated, or that generosity is a weakness, or that you should stop caring about the people in your life. That is not the message. The message is far more nuanced and far more demanding than that. The message is, be kind, but be honest. Be generous, but be boundaried. Be compassionate, but be courageous. Because kindness without honesty is performance. Generosity without boundaries is self-destruction. Compassion without courage is just conflict avoidance dressed in a noble costume. The people who changed my life, the stories that cracked me open and rebuilt me in ways I never expected, they were not the people who were always pleasant. They were the people who were real. They were the people who sat across from me and said, I disagree with you and I love you. The people who said, I cannot do that, but here is what I can do. The people who said, I am struggling and I need help, instead of, I am fine, don't worry about me. Those people with their honesty and their boundaries and their beautiful, imperfect realness, they were the most connected, most loved, most genuinely alive people I have ever encountered. And none of them were particularly nice in the conventional sense, but every single one of them was brave. Courage is the antidote, not meanness, not coldness, not walls, courage. The courage to disappoint someone and survive it. The courage to say no and watch the world not end. The courage to show your real face instead of your performance face and discover, maybe for the first time, that your real face is actually what people were hungry for all along. The courage to say, this is who I am and this is what I need and I believe I am worth knowing. Because here's what happens when you stop being too nice and start being authentically you. Your relationships get smaller and deeper. You stop collecting acquaintances and start cultivating real connection. The people who only wanted you for your endless availability and agreeableness, they fade, and that is painful. I will not pretend it is not painful, but the people who stay, the people who choose you when you are fully, imperfectly, honestly you, those people become your real family. Those relationships become the ones that sustain you instead of drain you. Those connections become the reason you wake up in the morning with something that feels like peace instead of something that feels like obligation. What if the most loving thing you have ever done has nothing to do with what you gave? What if it has everything to do with what you finally stopped pretending? What if the greatest gift you can offer the people in your life is not your endless availability, but your honest, present, boundaried, real self? What if that is what they have been waiting for? What if that is what you have been waiting for? The hidden cost of being too nice is real. It is paid in the currency of your identity, your energy, your authentic relationships, and your sense of self. But the debt is not permanent. It can be repaid. Not through dramatic gestures or overnight transformations, but through small, daily, terrifying, courageous acts of honesty. Through one boundary spoken out loud. Through one no that should have always been a no. Through one honest conversation that replaces 1,000 silent resentments. Through one moment of choosing your truth over someone else's comfort. Start there. Just start there. We began today with a question: what if the nicest person in the room is actually the most disconnected? And I hope, with every part of me, I hope that by now that question has cracked something open in you, because the truth is not comfortable. The truth that people-pleasing is rooted in fear, that chronic niceness breeds chronic resentment, that boundaries are acts of love, that worthiness cannot be earned, none of that is comfortable. But discomfort is not the enemy. Discomfort is the beginning. It is the first signal that something real is happening, that something is shifting, that the performance is ending and the real person is starting to breathe. You are not too much. You are not selfish for having needs. You are not difficult for having limits. You are not unloving for saying no. You are a human being, complex, worthy, imperfect, and irreplaceable, and you deserve relationships that are built on your truth, not on your performance. The world does not need more niceness. The world needs more courage. The world needs more honesty. The world needs more of you, the real you, the boundaried you, the brave you. So walk out of here today, or close this screen, or turn off this video, and choose one small act of courage, just one, and then another, because that is how it happens. Not in one speech, not in one revelation, but in one brave, honest, imperfect moment at a time.